Hello, I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. This is a bonus video for the load balance playthrough, and today I'm going to show off my drone delivery system. In the late game, you're forced to expand other parts of the map as most of the biomes don't have enough of everything. The logistics of moving all the parts you'll need to a new area to build the next factory can become a huge time sink and a bit of a headache. There are lots of ways to do it. Most are going to have some sort of trade-off, so play around with them and see what works best for you. I tend to load up a project train with as much of the materials as I think I'll need. The to-do list helps a ton, but I always seem to forget something and will need to make at least one more trip back to the storage. Once I unlock drones and have a supply of batteries, all those headaches disappear. I'm going to be using the spot on top of the storage. So no blueprints this time, although I guess I probably could have included one of the floor holes, but we're just going to manually build this whole thing. So I'm going to get it right on the edge because it's got this overhang, might as well use it to make it look cool. So we're going to do pretty much a mirrored setup, and I'm just going to have 4 rows running all the way down the roof. So let's see, we got those. Now I know where the middle is. It's this one. So this foundation right here being the middle. I'm just gonna have it so each one of these, just nudge it into place, and we can just barely see it, but it lines up with that half, so that way I can just snap this one to that half, and then I am going to stretch these all the way down. Alright, with 4D drone ports on the ceiling, first step is going to be batteries. So these all need to be fed batteries. So I'm just going to place a floor hole right next to the battery input on all the drones. With the battery floor holes in place, the next one is going to be placing the floor holes for the inputs. So I want all of these directly in the middle. Let's just use our measuring stick. So there to there is 16. From here to the middle of that one is 16. So that one is in the middle. Okay. So this is where we're going to place the floor holes for all of the inputs. So with the batteries, I just kind of want them more or less, not necessarily hidden, but they aren't the focus. But with all of the inputs, I'm just going to run these all along the middle. Alright, so with all the floor holes down, now I just need to place a whole bunch of lifts and belts. So normally I use whatever appropriate speed is, but with this I want things to refill as quick as possible. So this is one of the few places where I'm indiscriminately just going to use Mark V for just about everything. Alright, and there is half of the roof done. Just to kind of give you an example of what this is going to look like. So these ones are going to feed in the batteries, this is going to feed in the product. So now let me show you what right underneath it is going to look like. Okay, so we'll be using both of these spaces. Right here is where all of the magic is more or less going to happen, but first, let's actually head on into this area. So this is where everything kind of gets either sorted and stored and then splits off for the overflow. So part of the reason why I went with 3 storage containers as a kind of storage buffer is I wanted one to always be available. So this is kind of like my last resort. There's always going to be one filled up that I can walk into and grab whatever I need. These next two are basically going to be the buffer for both this and the drone ports. I'm just going to place a floor hole right in the middle of the foundation because that's where every storage container is. All the way down for all of the different products. And then I can just grab, I'm going to use, like I mentioned, Mark V for pretty much everything. And then we're just going to be able to grab this. So now this way, these two storage are basically a buffer for both the drone port and this. So if I grab any of this, it obviously just gets refilled either way. But this gives me a nice buffer for now any of my on-demand items. So up here, it'll just look like this, basically. All the way down, we're going to have just all of these floor holes. Now the goal is to connect each storage with a different drone port. So the way we're going to go about that is we're just going to drop down most of these. Fortunately, this very first one is pretty much the only one that won't line up in a convenient sort of way. The rest of these, this one can be turned this way too, I think. And then it's going to be this way. Okay, and that's the last one that I can do where they won't be clipping at all. So from this point, we're just going to go up a level. And we're just going to start the spaghetti of overlapping the belts, but no clipping. And you can nudge them even after you've clicked them down and readjusted their height, which is really convenient for doing this. Or for like this one, we'll nudge it into place, we'll do it, and then we'll delete it so that it's not clipping straight through there. And this is basically how this is all going to work on both sides. So let me finish up this belt work and let me show you what it looks like with it all put together. And ta-da! So here we are. So this is what it looks like. So on this side, we haven't used up all the storage, and that's why I still haven't closed this off, is there is potential to need to expand this thing a little bit more, so I'm kind of just not going to finish it for a little bit until I figure out where all the things are going. So I haven't used all my drone ports. What I did with the batteries is I have one set up like the rest of these where I can call it. The other two I'm going to leave as open. So if if I set up a factory in the desert and it needs both the drone port to grab things from another factory, it'll need batteries. So I'll need to put 2 drone ports there. One will be in charge of bringing in batteries for all the drones and yada, yada, yada. So the other thing I did was set up I know, this is shameful for me, but I did set up a manifold. This is going to be the only one in the world, and the only reason for it is this isn't really a factory. If you were loading like vehicles with fuel, you would do it the same way. There's essentially no way to load balance it because none of these drone ports are going to be using batteries at a consistent rate, except for maybe eventually these 2 ports that are doing batteries for other ones. But since they're only going to get used on demand, they're just going to be sitting completely still on a belt 99% of the time. so there really isn't a reason to load balance 40 different drone ports. So it is a manifold. I know. Feel free to shame me in the comments. But it'll be the only one that I'm planning on doing anyways. Anyways, this is how all of the products are getting fed up into all of the different drone ports. So we've got all of the items on this side being brought up, and I think there's a few more being brought up on this side. And then each drone port just has the power brought down below because it just looks cleaner than having a power line on top, like I do with most of the other machines. My naming convention is I put a asterisk in the front. That way in the future, when I'm doing ports that are just going to be for factory to factory and other uses, they won't have that. So it's an easy way for me to be able to make sure and tell that, you know, I'm grabbing the home supply sort of a thing. So there's one last thing to do. I haven't actually flipped the switch to turn this all on, so none of the drone ports actually have any of their items available. So once we flip the switch, it'll load them all up with both batteries to fuel the drones and all of the products to fill up both the drone and all of the remaining inventory slots in the drone port. With the ability to flip a priority power switch anywhere in the world, I didn't feel the need to have this in a convenient spot, so I just have it down here where everything else is, because I could just always place another one of these anywhere. Don't even need to hook it up to power, and I can come over here and I could flip the switch. So I'm going to put this in group 8 because realistically the drones are probably one of the least integral things. I need everything else to run before the drones can even do anything. And let's flip the switch and watch it all start loading up. Now I have the ability to go anywhere on the map, power on a drone port, and have any of these items sent to me. And to do that, I made this handy blueprint that has a drone port and a mini storage area with sorting to make it as clean as possible. Let me show you how it works. So just kind of look at it. I'll just place it here. So it has a total of 20 industrial storage containers. It's filled with a whole bunch of mainly smart splitters, but we do have a couple programmable splitters in here, because what I wanted to do is for a lot of the items, actually they're on this side, I put the most common build items that I figured I would use, you know, the ones that you're going to use in probably the highest quantity, like concrete, obviously. Iron plates, rods could probably have shared a different container, but I wanted the ones that I knew that, you know, I could go through just tons of, like steel. This whole bottom row is all belts and pipe components. And on the other side are still pieces that I'll need a good amount of, like computers, motors. If I'm building refineries or anything, you'll go through a ton. Same with heavy modular frames. And then I have this question mark. So everything that I didn't list, say I need radio control units or any of the more rare items, they'll end up in this very last one. And if all else fails, I can set up a sink and, you know, clear out any overflow. But this gives me a nice way to be able to call any items. I can come in here and, you know, let me go somewhere else so we can actually see this in action. Hold, please. I am out over by my secondary power plant just to kind of give it a little bit of space. It's not the other side of the map, but it's a far enough distance where I think this is a good example. I wouldn't want to run back and forth to my storage, So all I need to do is grab my mobile storage blueprint. Since it's one blueprint and I'll just be able to delete it afterwards, I can place it anywhere. It really doesn't matter as long as I have access to everything. The only thing it does need is I do need to be able to connect this drone port to power. Once it's powered on, this, you can change the name if you want. I'll change it to like temporary or in the field or, you know, whatever you want, but it doesn't matter. What you do is you come over to all ports, because if you come to this ports, there's no relevant ports. Nothing is attached associated with this one yet, right? So if we come over to all ports, now I did put an asterisk in front of everything. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to scroll past this. I wish there was. The plus 28 others, you can't see. You have to input something into the search field. So even if I put the asterisk, I still can't scroll and I can't see all the rest of them, which is kind of a bummer in my opinion, but it's not hard to work around. So all you have to do is just type in what you're looking for. So if I needed, you know, well, obviously concrete's right there, but that's an obvious one, right? So all you do is you just go down to the second option and it's this port. So I want that to come to here. And then we'll just do, what else do we need? We need iron plates, we need reinforced iron plates, and we need iron rods. You know, we need all of them. We need our beams and pipes, you know. The nice thing about this is once you do this initial batch of drones that are coming in, each time you kind of come back, you can kind of take a look at your different storage containers and you'll kind of start to get an idea of, you know, how much you're using, how much you'll need, you know, like, oh, I'm still going to need a whole bunch of pipe work. Oh, I don't have enough copper sheets, so let's just call in copper sheets. So once you've queued up all the different things that you're going to need, the one thing you're going to make sure you do is come back in here. Now you want to use this port. So you'll see all of these are now relevant ports because they're all being sent here. So with concrete, this one, sometimes I'll just leave it on. And so it can do a couple trips because you can go through concrete quite quickly. But say, you know, I'm probably not going to need more than 900 reinforced iron plates since it's going to drop off 9 stacks of 100. So we go into here and we go from this port to no port. What that means is even if you do it as soon as it hits this, the default is this check mark. Once it hits the in transit status, you can go ahead and just change them to no port. And what that will do is they will do their one run, they will drop off their inventory, they'll go back to their home port, and then they're going to see that they don't have any more port associated with it, and then they're just going to stay there. So that way you can decide if you want things to keep running, if it's something like concrete or iron plates or something where you know you just need a whole bunch of it, more than the 9 stacks it's going to drop off. But for a lot of items, you just need it to drop off that one thing, and you'll be good to go. So you just want to make sure that you turn it off, or the drone will just keep running back and forth until you turn it off. And you get to watch this fun thing every time when you queue up a whole bunch, which I just love. The other great part is, you know, I usually make sure I do concrete first. That way I can grab the concrete and then I can start building. I can go over here, I can start laying down foundation, I can start working on something, and the drones will just do their thing. It'll sort into the individual storage containers, and I can just go about it. The downsides really aren't that bad, in my opinion, but this system does have them. To have 40 different items, for example, available for delivery, that'll cost you 4 gigawatts of power just to have them on and waiting, not even doing anything. Alternatively, you could have the priority power switch in there like I do and only turn it on when you need stuff, but keep in mind they'll only load when they're powered on and that sort of a thing. So I prefer just to have the ability to leave them on all the time. The other downside is that drones have an inventory capacity of 9 slots, and that's what they're going to bring if that much is available in your storage. So for items like supercomputers, it's going to bring me 10 times more than what I'll want or need. You could set up a return drone to take items back and resort them. I find it's not worth the hassle, and I just sink what I don't need at the end of building a factory. My thinking is it's either going to sink here or it's going to sink at the storage eventually. The next project will be fuse modular frames, and then I'll finally be able to unlock that second to last milestone. So look forward to that, and thanks for watching.